Ready.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It is 6:30 on July 12th. Once we have officially called this regular board meeting to order. And we will begin our in-person meeting with salute to the flag. Oh, yes, if you haven't done so yet, please sign in at the back. There's also an agenda back there for you guys. I believe in this, the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So quickly, we'll do a super quick roll call. Carly Hoover, Director District 1. Yeah, Lower Jack, Director District 2.
Dave Larson, District 5.
Edna Morris, District 4.
And of course, we have our superintendent, Dr. Herndon, and then welcome to all of our guests, both in person and online. Thank you so much for making the time to be here with us this evening. So to get us started, Director Larson is going to welcome us into our invitation.
So we start with the meeting agreements that we have, which kind of used in our meetings, and the agreements are stay engaged, experience discomfort, be vulnerable, speak your truth, expect and accept non-future. And for the land recognition, we, the Tuckahoe School District, acknowledge the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play, the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we recognize the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial.
Kind of in addition to those kind of agreements that he just read, we also have our board operating agreements. And this is kind of things that we as a board have outlined, the ways that we want to engage with each other and do the work. And so these are available for you if you want to check, and accountability is important across the board. So if there are times or ways in which we are not being accountable to ourselves, we invite your feedback for that. So before we approve the agenda, there is one amendment that we are going to make. We are actually going to remove action item B, which is the approval of the extension of the superintendent contract. We're going to move that to a further meeting. There are a variety of reasons why we're doing that. The biggest reason is we're in a time when we are kind of in the middle of our strategic planning. We really want to make sure that really focusing on aligning our visions as a board and superintendent to really ensure that we are creating across our organization kind of that shared understanding. We also believe that, we really, we know that coming out of COVID, we've been really tumultuous and challenging 2 years, and we need to, we've got a lot of work to do together. And so we want to see some movement as a collective. And so again, we will revisit that attention in the coming months. So with that, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay.
So, anyone opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. So the agenda stands approved as amended. So we will move now to public comments. There are, as a reminder, several ways to give public comments. If you are joining us virtually today, you can use the chat box, type in your name in the chat box, and then we can give you speaking privileges to actually come on and say your public comment yourself. You can also raise your hand and do it that way. If you had intended or hoped to submit a written public comment that was actually due today by noon. And then, of course, if you're here in person, and would like to give public comment, there's a sign-up sheet, it's still at the front, right here at the front, by Deb, and just need some information there. So pause for seconds, and if there is any public comment. just to confirm, because I forgot to ask, did we receive any written public comment?
We did not.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on then. And as a reminder, there is always an opportunity for public comment at the end of our meetings. So moving on to our reports. So Dr. Hearn, the recent.
Yeah, just a few here, it wasn't too long ago, 2 weeks ago, when we had the last update, so. Opportunities coming up, I actually just was in conversation with Puget Sound ESD, trying to formalize some opportunities coming up at the beginning of August, that first week of August. I will be meeting with them at that point. They have a few people who are out kind of on leave, but as we develop the SMART goals for our strategic plan, I just want to make sure that that's aligning with the work that we have contracted with them this particular year. Additionally, the work that we're looking at, especially around race and equity work happening within buildings, some of that feedback that we have, not only for the strategic plan, but in the CDE data, which are the surveys that we have from families and students and staff. That's part of the work that we have with CDE. So it's really aligning the work, working with principals as well, to make sure that's lined up. Additionally, I am really excited about getting the student superintendent advisory committee going. That's one that's going to be happening as we get the school year started. And so I'll be putting out information for students. Right now is probably not necessarily the time where they're really tracking a lot of email. But as we get closer to the school year and send out more information, I'm making sure that that's widely publicized. So I'm really excited about that. And also excited just about the progress we're making in some of the filling of some of the positions. We should have an announcement coming out about our chief academic officer, which I think is also going to be extremely relevant to the work that we're doing, not only academically, but also in person. So for the most part, that's what I have currently on the race and equity updates.
I was looking back to my notes to try and find it, but it's probably easier just to ask. Can you remember me the age range that you're looking for in the superintendent?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is, so I've seen everything in the superintendent advisory council. Some have a lot of students, some have just a few students. The conference I attended at the end of June, really looking at the Yakima piece, they had about 8 surrounding us. I think Highline's right around there as well, Renton. So I'm getting kind of that optimal size. I'd love to get, representation from high school and middle school for sure, but also trying to include some elementary folks. I'm just trying to think of the best way and time that I can get them all together. So that's kind of the logistical challenge that I've been looking at. But yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah, well, food is one thing, but it's just like time of the day, because they don't, they don't get out necessarily at the same time. And I'm trying to incorporate it. One of the pieces that Yakima saw in their second year, as opposed to the first year, was trying to figure out time to meet during the day. And that's what makes it a little bit more challenging, trying to include the elementary students, is their timing's a little bit different. So I don't know how I can meet in the building with them at the same time. So it's just some things I have to logistically puzzle through. But even if that doesn't happen, I think just getting some more intentional feedback from the elementary students will be great. They have some really great insights that they have to share about the stuff that we're doing. So I'm excited to see that incorporated, that not just what I'm doing, but at the building level within each of the.
Yeah, that's kind of obviously it'd be awesome to get, at least some elementary voices on that council itself, but if not, maybe because logistically that makes total sense, and that, probably pose some challenges transportation wise and other things. But maybe there's an opportunity, kind of like you alluded to, but to really be strategic about getting there, but maybe it's even a separate, one that needs a little bit less or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And what I also really am interested in that is hopefully the students who are involved in it at the upper grades can really help the younger students start to develop some of those leadership skills, participation, and finding their voice, all of those pieces. So our students are really great at all ages, willing to share for sure.
I think just one other question I had, so I think you mentioned before that this is kind of our last year, under the current PSESD work. So I was kind of, curious, heading into this year, kind of what are you thinking about, or what measurables or outcomes are you looking for to know if we want to continue a partnership work with them, or?
Yeah, I think part of that is gonna be conversations, not only with our chief academic officers, but ones that I want to have with the building diversity and equity teams and leads. To see what they're really looking to get out of this particular year, and then what kind of additional support they need moving forward. So I want to include them in that conversation about, so what are we looking for in this particular year? I know with Puget Sound ESD, they also are, there are a couple of, I think I mentioned last time, a couple of strains that they're looking at. So getting, finding the student voices included in more opportunities. And then also just a diversification of staff, hiring and retaining staff. So between those two particular pieces, what are some of the measurables that each building in there, beyond just professional development opportunities, but what are some of the metrics that they could look at? So I really want to include those teams a little bit more in what we're looking at.
When do you kind of hope to have a idea? I mean, obviously.
Yeah. So I'm meeting with PSESD in August, and then I'm hoping to figure out when's going to be the best time with the building league teams in the beginning of the year. So yeah, it might not be September, it might be late August as they're coming back together. I just really want to get the best sense of what they feel is going to be a good time for them.
But maybe we're kind of like, maybe in early October.
First quarter for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
we could.
October at the
see that.
latest, because I want to make sure whatever we have going on is going to be for the majority of the school year.
Along with race and equity, in the budget, so we have 2 race and equity positions. Those,
We have one posted. I don't know if we've interviewed for those yet. I don't know who that.
and will those be admin office positions?
No, they're working in the schools.
They're in this,
Yeah, they're not admin positions.
are there job descriptions?
Yes. Yep. Their postings should be in.
Okay,
Those
Okay.
postings are not before the end of June.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It'd be nice to get a little report that sometimes we hear about what, like the district race and equity team and what the building and the teams, what's their kind of work plan for the year, what are they working on? And
That's a pretty good question. Who kind of like is kind of responsible for kind of overseeing and bringing the race and equity work together?
Yeah, so originally that was what we were looking at for the district race and equity team. And then as we developed the building teams, one of the pieces that they want to do was check in kind of on a quarterly basis to really coordinate that. I think between the two positions that we were talking about, race and equity, is really to make that more aligned and coordinated with what we're doing. So that's part of the job description coming out for these folks.
And then as far as kind of like the central office lead, who.
Well,
support
if
that?
we're looking at anything around the staffing pieces, human resources, obviously, when we're talking about professional development, that's going to be coordination with the chief academic officer as we look at the professional development calendar.
Mhm.
How are the race and equity pieces integrated into things like school improvement plans? What's the data that we're looking at? Feedback from students or parents or about.
Yeah, but even something that just feels like, getting goals and,
Mhm.
things from each of the race and equity teams. Is there a central person that's doing that, or you're saying that that's the new position is gonna have to
Yeah,
support that?
one of those new positions is what's helping to support that.
Okay. Any other questions around the race and equity stuff? Okay, COVID.
COVID-19 still exists. And what's interesting is, I've been, tracking this. I look at the data, the county now updates their website every 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, apparently. So I've been looking at that, and when you look at kind of this overall kind of variants that are happening, there's kind of been this slow, steady rise throughout the spring, and then it's just kind of plateauing. It's just staying up there. There doesn't seem to be a downside of this yet. The impacts on Hospitalizations, deaths, those are kind of varying, but they're definitely lower than they were in the beginning of that, which to me is talking about kind of the effectiveness, hopefully, of vaccines and people just being more aware of it. I do see people wearing more masks when they're not feeling well. I see people when they're not feeling well or get a positive test staying home. All of those things that we're really trying to get out towards people, as far as what we have available here, the same protocols that we have set up that we had in spring, we're continuing through summer school, so we're still tracking those. We have our nursing staff available. We don't know if there's going to be anything different or any updates from King County Department of Health related to the opening of the school year. Again, my guess is going to be, we'll have to wait until August to see if there's anything. I haven't heard any rumblings of anything yet. But I think a lot of this is going to depend on whatever's happening with these variants that are out there right now and how impactful they are to overall health operation, hospitalizations, deaths, what have you. I think we don't know yet what the impact of having vaccinations available for under 5-year-olds is yet. Those are just starting to roll out since that approval just happened within the last 3 weeks. I know for myself, my own, personal revelation about or revealing of information. I'm waiting to get my second booster until August to make sure that I'm at the peak of immunity going into the school year, since we know that immunity kind of wanes over a couple months. So I debated about getting that in the spring, and then I thought, well, yeah, I could do that. But then over the summer, I might not be around as many students, so why not just wait until I get that round? So who knows what other vaccinations or opportunities are going to be out there. We do have another clinic scheduled for, I think it's July, either 26th or 27th, which would again allow for additional boosters for those who need them, and little ones, 5 and under, who may not have either received their first shot or who need their second shot. And that partner, the vaccination shots for the under 5s, not every place has the clearance to do that, but the partner we have does have that. So that's why we're able to offer that the first time. And then, yeah, we'll just see whatever the county has for any additional updates about what we need to do. That's what I have for COVID.
Just confirming that, again, based on the budget, reading this right, we'll still have those 2 quarantine specialists through next year. Is that?
I think we'll see what the need is for the number of students who are being
At
quarantined.
least going into the year, we'll have.
Going
it,
into
so
the
start.
year, we'll look and see what the needs of students are going to be. Again, especially going in, like having everybody back together again. There may be an uptick in the number of cases that we have going on. We do want to be able to build in capacity to connect students if they have to be out during quarantine. But I also want to make sure we've got whatever the latest update and guidance from Department of Health is about quarantine time. Are there any changes to that? So yes, we want to make sure we've got support for students who are going to be out for quarantine.
Okay. Yeah, I think just again to kind of reiterate, probably like at the end of August, or actually probably the first meeting in August, perhaps. That might be too soon. When would be appropriate to expect, like, here is our COVID plan, including like communication for the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, it's a good question. The first, I think we can look and see what we have planned by that first meeting in August, but I don't know if I'll try and get a sense of any updates that the county may have. But we can have the framework of what that communication plan is going to look like. I'm a little hesitant to kind of send out those communications that far ahead, not knowing if the county is going to give us anything different or an update, but it doesn't mean we can't come with that plan so that you can see it, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll make sure we have that.
Yeah, I think one thing that we definitely all learned in March is that, like, the more that we can have kind of like even templates for what communication might be,
Correct.
so that as soon as the plan is made,
Yeah.
that communication
Yeah.
can go out.
Yes.
Any other questions? Things around COVID? Okay, cool. So now we'll go to the consent agenda. So I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Any one opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is approved as presented. I could have like some consistency in how I do it. I don't, so something different every time. All right, that's okay. So now to our board discussion to review the 2022-2023 budget. So I'm not sure if you wanted to start anything off, or if not, I can just kick it to Director Larson. I'm certain has some questions to get the conversation started.
like, whether you be in or not.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Okay.
Hi, Veronica, the CFO. And we are gonna have a discussion about the 22-23 budget. The process as follows, in our previous, working session, that happened today at 5:30. We had some input from some of our staff that will be used, in the budgeting process. The next steps, I will have a couple of community forums where I will talk about the budget process, the expectations, kind of the importance of getting the input for our budget, as well as have more dialogue with some of our students. We are looking to approve the budget August 23rd, which is our second board meeting. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done between now and then. And the purpose of this meeting right now is to look at the current draft and get the input from the board.
So I guess the first question I'm trying to understand a little bit more, work on is the technology part of it. And so we get an allocation, you know, in SOC for the, and then we have our tech levy. I think there's, you know, a bunch more money for technology, and it looks like, yeah, in this, remember one diagram that you're talking about, for 21-22, it's like $291,000 or something coming from the BEA. Yeah, so
If that is this range?
Oh, yeah, from the questions.
question.
Oh, okay, yeah, just throw that out.
Okay. What I'm just trying to figure out is whether or not, you know, because we have, and this is again for my advocacy purposes, the legislature is, you know, we know we get shortchanged in our BEA money for special education. I mean, every district in the state does. And so I'm trying to figure out, you know, where are we taking it? I mean, we have a fixed pie BEA, and we have to pull money, and I think I heard you say before that, so that deficit amount, we can take it from a few different places, but we've chosen to take it from BEA, which I think a lot of districts probably do.
Yes.
So that means we're pulling it from somewhere in BEA. And I'm trying to figure out if technology is one of those places that we're pulling it from, because you know, the expenditures are 300,000 or something, and you know, we're hitting with 450,000 in BEA, something like that. But you know, again, this doesn't have to be exact numbers, but I'm just trying to figure out, you know, where are you, you know, what are we reducing in BEA in order to cover the special education? Do you have any?
So it's a moving piece, it's this
Yeah.
wonderful domino effect, right?
Right.
So, as I stated before, usually how the enrichment works, which is our, you know, our $11.
Yeah.
Is whatever the state doesn't fund, you're supposed to
Right.
allocate that. But in special ed, they are legit costs, and that's not how I want to portray
Right,
that, so I
right.
leave it in BA. So
Right.
absolutely, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul if we want to use
Yeah.
that sense. But a lot of that is going to be shifting, right? So let's say to your point with the tech, right? If we're allocated 400,000, but we're spending about 300, then the 100,000 is gonna go towards
Yeah.
the lack of funding in special education, which means that we have other BEA dollars that are now being shifted to levy dollars. So that's a different pot of money so that we can fund the reduction of funding for special education.
Okay, so it sounds like Yeah, some of the technology dollars we get from the state are being actually, we're shifting.
Yes, but it's not enough to.
Oh, no, it's not nearly enough, but it's one, it's a bunch of different shifting things that are going on. I'm just trying to get a feel for, like I said, when I do advocacy, what's getting shortchanged, you know, what we're shifting it from. To just kind of make the case to the legislature that they keep, I mean, they're well aware of it and they keep working on it, chipping away a little bit, but they still got a long ways to go, so. The other thing that I was exploring and still working on this is and this is also in relation to special education, and it's the Medicaid. And so that the program, my understanding of reading an article on this, that a few years ago, you know, students that are on IEPs and maybe getting, you know, speech language pathologists or, you know, physical therapy or all these different things that the students need. That originally the federal government said that Medicaid could not be used for that. And then about 5 years ago, they changed their tune and said Medicaid can be used for that. However, what I'm understanding, and so my question was, why aren't we taking advantage of that more? And it comes, my understanding is what you're saying is that it comes down to you know, how much paperwork does it cost or how much time, you know, is the cost, a lot of these things, the money's out there, but it may cost us more to apply and get it than it does. And so if that's the case, then I think we need to work with, my understanding is that Medicaid is overseen in the state by the State Healthcare Authority, and I happen to know some healthcare authority, so I'm kind of interested in pursuing, you know, and I even started, a number of states are actually working with Medicaid to kind of break down, make it more streamlined process, because, I mean, if we're delivering services for our special education students that generally qualify under you know, their IPs and so forth, if we can get that money, you know, from, rather than having to, as you say, shift it around and get it from locally, then I think we should be pursuing that. And so, anyway, I don't know if you have any other, I think that's kind of the questions on that. I definitely want to pursue that. has anybody pursued that with the healthcare authority in terms of, because I think you did make the comment that maybe big districts are able to do this and get that benefit, you know, those things funded through that. And if it's, you know, I'm also really interested, if it's a big district versus little district thing, then we need to go talk to the legislature about equity.
No, absolutely. Both myself and our special director, Jennifer Johns, will work to get you a follow-up to that.
Okay, because it looks like it's huge, because a lot of those services that we're providing definitely, you know, would be provided to Medicare patients generally. So anyway, yeah, and I'm going to pursue my little lead with the healthcare authority to see if that's an issue we need to bring up to the legislature. So that's great. I'm curious, and this, you know, this may be a question I need to do research on as well, but we're talking about, so we have a lot of these ESSER dollars, we're funding a lot of things with, and the question kind of comes down to how are we hope that some of these, well, we hope that all of the things that we're spending ESSER dollars on will produce some, you know, great outcomes for our students. But the question is, and these ESSER dollars we know go away in a couple of years, and then we're going to be stuck with, okay, we have these programs that some of them, you know, produce really good results, but now we don't have the money for it. And so do you have, or is somebody kind of tracking, you know, collecting data or stories about when we spend these ESSER dollars on social workers or counselors, whatever, you know, what the impact on students is, so that we, you know, at the end of the 2 years when the money goes away, and hopefully before then, we can go to the legislature and say, look, you know, we spent this money for our students, it's produced these great results. Now you guys need to figure out how to continue to fund those programs for us. I don't know if you have a list of those things that you're kind of trying to collect some data on or not, but
So we know that, the particular programs that we
Yeah,
have in place, whether it's the after-school program,
Right.
tutoring, things of that nature, we're able to get data, right? Like, say, hey, they're, here's, where they started, here's where they ended
Right.
in that perspective. But as far as like the social workers or, the additional staffing piece, I will have to find a way to work with the chief academic officer to kind of see how we
Yeah.
can
Okay,
see how that can be measured, and some of that may be just a conversation with the particular staff, and then maybe some students say, how do you feel with the addition of X, Y, Z, how does
Right.
that help in your academic access, or even your social emotional status?
yeah, and maybe it's, there's less discipline issues, maybe there's, better grades, less dropout, I mean, whatever it is, but yeah,
Yes.
so. All of that information, as soon as that, you see that kind of information, we'd love to see that, because that's what we need to go down to the legislature and start making the case for some of this stuff.
I think just to that point as well, having a conversation, at least through the ESD and with superintendents in other districts. To know what's the data that legislators want to see.
Yeah.
In order from that,
Yeah.
because we could collect the data that we think is important, but if they think that's not the data I want to see. It's not gonna, they're not, you've worked with them long enough, if it's not producing the data that they want to see. They're gonna be like, yeah, that's great, but that's not the data I care about. So part of that is knowing the data that our legislators care about to know whether or not that's making a difference.
Yeah, and they're written. I'm not sure a lot of them know enough to know what exactly data, I mean,
Right.
I hear them talk a lot about, a lot of, Zoom calls that, both at the federal and state level, that, the legislators, they want to know what's the impact of this money that we're throwing at you.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of to some degree, that's kind of the level they're at.
right.
So when you go below that, it gets a little busy, and so then we need to kind of tell them what, what matters for the students, so. Yeah. I was interested in, so, said, 1.0 theater specialist. Now, I wanted to just be clear about, we have for years funded, theater, a part-time theater, teacher at Foster High School. And it's, I think, part-time theater and then part-time English, they also take English. And so when we're talking about using ESSER dollars to fund one-time theater specialists, is that in addition to what's there, or are we talking about, we're gonna take the theater, the portion of the theater specialists that was at Foster, and they're now gonna, make it a full-time position and have it be both Foster and Showalter?
That is a really good
I think
question.
somebody's shaking their head yes.
Yes.
Okay,
yes, we are
Okay.
creating that full-time position between Stillwater and Foster.
okay,
And because we need to build up this program,
Right.
because people quit,
Right.
like we split between ELA and theater.
right,
We couldn't secure, we had to make a one.
okay, yeah, that makes sense, I just. We'll have then an issue, if it's being funded by ESSER dollars, then we'll have an issue at the end of 2 years now.
Mhm.
And so we'll have to kind of watch that one, but yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense, because it's one of those programs that you need, multiple years, multiple levels to make it successful, so that's great. And you also had on here two, let's see. 1 times 2 counselors at secondary. I thought we were talking about adding. Oh, is it one at Foster and one at Showalter? We were talking about adding one more at Foster for sure.
Yeah, correct. I need to, make sure that I didn't be a counselor and social worker. mixed
Oh,
up in the
yeah.
terminology.
Okay, yeah, if that's, that would make more sense to me, because that's kind of my question, is that the social, because I know we have 2 social workers, one at Foster and one at Showalter. Funded by ESSER dollars, but I didn't think. Yeah. And. Yeah, there's general consensus that we definitely need another counselor, Foster, and counseling position as opposed to social worker, so. Okay. Yeah, because like only one of those counselors was involved in career, okay, that's probably rescheduled. That's. You guys got some questions?
I think kind of along the lines of just a social worker counselor discussion, I'm just curious about supports at the elementary level. And if there is opportunity to either, of course, we've talked a lot about creating systems, right? Either, someone here that supports all of that work, or just whether it is in addition of a social worker that maybe works at all the school. I don't know what that would look like, but I think we had a great conversation with the social worker at Thorndike, and just really, talking about if we put a lot of these things in place in the elementary level, we're really going to support, students by the time they get to secondary. But if we put all these interventions in place at the secondary level, not to say like by that time, it's too late or anything. That's not what I mean. But like, there's a lot more, I think, challenges or like, embedded protective factors that, come up, right? That are, protective mechanisms. And so the more intervention that we can really do at the elementary level, particularly around social emotional learning and supports. So yeah, I guess is there potential to lean into that at all?
So I know that we are looking at that. One of our biggest issue, right now, at the elementary level is spacing, right? You start adding these additional bodies and people, we get to, a spacing issue, right? Which has another domino effect, right? That nobody really thinks about, as far as like even parking, right? So where are these additional people gonna park because we already have so many parking things, that's a whole nother meeting. It's not really conversation that I had that she put me up to speed with. And so we know that there is a need. We are just trying to logistically figure out how to comfortably house people to be able to do the work. So we are in discussions with trying to figure out how to bring some of those support services in the buildings for elementary students.
And I know it'd probably be like, I wonder if there are also two like outside the box ways of like really incorporating transportation, and maybe there's a way to, maybe it isn't at each elementary school, but there's still folks that support the elementary schools. I don't know if there might be opportunities for that as well, if space, I totally get that.
We have the space issue district.
Yeah,
Like here, the transportation center, the, service center, so, but yeah, we're not trying to neglect what's happening at the elementary level. I think everything you're talking about is actually right. I was having a conversation with someone today, talking about how that alignment and investment at the elementary level can pay off dividends. We know we also get students who move in, move out at different grade levels, so we're always still going to have that need at the secondary level, but hopefully, we're able to get some good timely intervention and support happening at the earlier level to reduce the number of issues that may be happening.
Also just creates a stronger sense of like continuity of care.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
From the younger to really graduate.
The only thing that I would, want to see somehow, I don't know how to see it, but, we do a lot of extra programs for our kids outside of the classroom. And like, Jonathan sent me that thing, that shows all the different resources that we have for mental health for our students. And yet it doesn't feel to me like we have any evaluation tool in with that. So how do we evaluate those consultants that we bring in? iReady test doesn't work on that. And yet if their iReady scores are going up in the classroom and it is aligned with one of those programs, then we need to continue to support those programs. And I don't know how to put that together.
Yeah, like really seeing a stronger through line between what's happening and the progress that's being made or not.
Yeah, and I do like, I think over the last couple of years, we've moved more toward a push in than pull out. And that works better for space in our spaces that are so crowded. push those paras and extra supports into the classroom, the kids stay in that environment. And it's the support they need in that environment, takes away, we don't need that special room that they go to. But those staff people also still need some kind of space someplace that's needed for them. So I get that.
I think one way potentially to evaluate some, and we do that sometimes, is have, you know, kind of what I call third party audits. So some expert group from outside come in and look at the program and evaluate its expertise in that area. You know, I don't know, do a ton of that because it costs money, but we can do some of that for some of these programs.
I think it'd be interesting too, to, and I may have mentioned it to you before, Dr. Hernan, but even just to like, what are all of the initiatives that we're even engaged in at the moment, across the district? Is there something that's kind of tracking that already?
Probably not as effectively as we'd like.
Okay.
You know, I think if we think about what's happening at each particular building within each department, and I think that's kind of to Director Larson's image earlier, Dr. Harrow's going all over the place. Like, ideally, that's where you get that alignment that's happening. So, you know, I think if we can do a good job in looking at that, and that gets to a lot of the other issues that we've talked about over time, like hopefully that reduces a lot of the siloing that happened, collaboration, communication that's happening. If you get more of that, where kind of people know what's happening or being addressed, interventions, initiatives that are happening, they can see how they can also support that if that's what they need to do. Hopefully feel the effects of what those supports might be, whatever it is, and see the continuity of transitions that happen. Good ways for them to follow up with students or families later about, hey, you know, I saw that you're participating in this particular group. How's that going? Good ways to just check in qualitative ways that aren't necessarily in a feedback of survey or in a spreadsheet, but different ways that we can check in with our students.
It's pretty random, but in the work group before, you were telling us about the input you got from some of the elementary students, and you know, I was thinking about those, like even like the, you know, PE supplies or a calm down room or calm down, you know, thing. That seems really tangible and really like something that we could do. So I guess kind of when you receive that, like, I guess where do those things then fit into this? And do you see that as something like, oh yeah, really simple thing that we could probably.
Yeah, so it would be a larger conversation with building principals, couple teachers, just kind of have obviously, I don't want to be just the decision maker. Hey, this sounds great, we're gonna do it. No, we work as a team, right? So get the people that are gonna be directly affected by this to kind of see what that looks like. What does their vision look like, as well as student input? Say, hey, you know, we talked to some students. Here's an idea. What do you guys think? What does this look like? Do we need some type of training? Do we need to bring somebody in that says, hey, when, you know, here's some breathing exercises, here's this or that, whatever that would look like, to make sure that everybody is on board and we are able to roll something that's so tangible. It seems so easy, but we're able to roll it out at ease and everybody's on the same page. So it's just having that larger conversation with the stakeholders and then making the decision and then seeing exactly what that would look like in the classroom. Is it in every classroom? Is it a certain room? Is it certain times during the day? You know, and then just seeing how it fits in.
Yeah, it seems like, I guess, like an interesting opportunity to. I don't know. Never mind, I'll process that later.
Done with budget.
Okay, any other budget related questions? Director Morris, I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity if you wanted to chime in anything.
I'm fine, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Spertzman. Appreciate you. And kind of just as a reminder for folks, we'll be approving that budget hopefully, on, August 23rd. So between now and then, there will be a few different opportunities. Oh, that was a question I meant to ask. Do you have those dates yet? Perhaps for any of those forums that you're working on for input?
I will have those by Thursday.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So we'll have at least 3 opportunities for some additional community input, as well as some more student input that will be happening over the next short time. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move now to our questions only presentations. So we, of course, just kind of again, as a reminder, we all had the opportunity to submit questions. I believe, are we still adding the answers to those questions in the agenda items for folks to see? They are, okay, wonderful. So if you're curious around the questions that the board's asking, as we're starting to review these materials originally, the responses get added to the individual agenda items there, so you can kind of track those if you'd like. So with that, are there any additional questions around any or all of these items?
Yeah, so,
Accreditation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty overwhelming. I don't know if there's someone who can just get a little bit of an overview of what we're looking at. It's 91 pages.
I can provide, I was doing a little research on this, I can provide a little background on some of it. What was interesting to me, first of all, is that there is no state level accreditation process, which I found curious. I looked on the State Board of Education website and they said accreditation is voluntary. And so, but then what we have in our area, my understanding is kind of what they call a regional accreditation process, which the Puget Sound ESD kind of organizes, I guess. They don't require anybody to do it, but it's, and, you know, I was trying to look at, you know, it's not even, I think, 50% of the schools in the state are accredited. So not everybody's doing it. I mean, it's obviously a fairly significant process to go through. And so, and I know a number of years ago, you know, Foster High School went through it. And, you know, if you're gonna do it, we want it to be, I think, you know, a process that is going to benefit everybody and not just something to run through. And so it can be it seems to me that could be a significant school improvement process to do. I mean, this is the way we're going to do, look at school improvement. And then you get the advantage of a third party coming in and auditing essentially your operation and giving you this feedback. It was interesting also, and I guess this is one of the questions I posed, you know, when I was looking at our policies, do we have a policy that requires our school to be accredited? The answer is no. I did find, however, in one of our procedures, it says district alternative learning program using digital or online learning will be accredited through the state accreditation program or the regional accreditation program. So, you know, our ALE programs are required by policy, by this procedure to be, but yet our schools are not.
Well, that's what I was just wondering.
Yeah,
Our classes are accredited. I mean, our kids graduate through their graduation,
yeah,
there is accreditation. But
yeah. Then we have, I guess I would
schools.
say what do you mean by accreditation, and formal versus informal?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they get a legitimate, but like I was asking the question, and I guess Mr. Howard kind of, you know, what is the benefit of going through this formal accreditation process? And, you know, it's, yeah, he said accreditation can affect these areas bulleted below. NC2A, international students who come to our district and need credit will not transfer to a non-accredited school. Colleges will ask and could impact students according to their state, to what state they attend college. AP courses are impacted, college and high school are impacted, could impact grants, accreditation is asked for in many grants. So it seems like there's a fairly good set of things.
But have we ever faced, have we ever lost anything, or? has
I don't.
Student ever lost?
Yeah, I don't, but I don't, not,
Not that I know of. But I think as has been mentioned, I mean, I think the process helps considerably with what we're looking at for alignment. It gives us a ton of feedback that we're looking for. So I think it's definitely worthwhile.
Is there a way to fit it?
Fail accreditation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a fairly strict regimen that they look through, that you go through to make sure that you're hitting the marks, because you know, you're basically buying that name membership of accreditation. So if you're not upholding that, it's like Abbott, you have to buy the name, you have to be a part of that membership, and if you're not meeting the standards, you can try and buy it, but they're not gonna sell it to you. So, yeah, that's certainly something to take a look at.
so yeah, and the last accreditation effort was done at Cross High School in 2019 and it failed.
Yeah.
So, and I did want to just comment on that a little bit, because when I look back, so what was going on in May of 2019? And the answer is, we had a principal that was on their way out, and the next few years, there was 2 interim principals, and so, I think today at Cross High School, it would be quite different from what was going on
Yeah.
in May of 2019, so I think we have to take that into account, but I think and the question is kind of for me going forward, and it sounds like it will be a good thing for us to go through this process. It's done by, I guess, a different organization than was done in 2019, but the same concept, same ideas. And it was interesting when I was reading the report from 2019, you know, a lot of the criticisms were related to the leadership, which, yeah, I mean, that was a problem at the point, and so hopefully that's been addressed in the interim. And so, so the question is, I guess, you know, should we have, as a board, should we have a policy that says we want our schools need to be accredited? And it sounds like maybe we should probably do that. So that, you know, it's becomes clear, and then there's the other question of, well, we want all our schools accredited, do we want their district accredited? And, you know, typically, I think, is my understanding, I'm still kind of getting research on this, but that it's most important probably at the high school, but it's, if we're looking at it as our school improvement process, then we run all ours, and the district as well, because they will evaluate, you know, district level functions. So I guess we get, I don't know, whether you have a recommendation on that at
Well-
this point, other than, I mean, you put forward here that, you know, we're gonna go do this with a timeline. And this timeline, I believe, includes all of our schools, but the
Correct.
district office,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what I would say is there's more I have to look at for other districts to see if they do district wide, if they do
Yeah.
anything other than high school.
Okay,
So, because I think that would be informative if we're gonna put in a policy and to see if any other districts have a policy that also states.
so I asked WASDA, I looked for a model policy at WASDA, and there didn't seem to be one.
Right.
And so I have a question, person on vacation policy person on there to say, you know, how to different districts handle this.
Yeah.
We did when I was, like I said, when I was doing research, it sounded like Highline does, Renton does accreditation, Kent does, Auburn does. Seattle doesn't appear to do it in the Union Federal way. I'm not sure why. It would be interesting
Right.
to other. It'd be, if you could find out
Yeah.
why they're not doing it, are they doing it some other way, or, you know, anyway, so it sounds like we have a little more research to do, but.
Yeah, it could be that I know that WASDA develops model policies often based on RCWs and WACs and what has to happen, or what the
Right.
legislature has to
Right.
happen. And since this isn't something
Right.
that has to happen, and again, I don't know how many other districts have a policy relating to accreditation.
Right.
I'll try and find out.
Yeah.
Could we get a list of the districts that are accredited, either as district or high school, or?
Yeah, I'll do my best to put that together. I'll talk with the ESD to see if they have a list. Chances are if they do something regional.
And it's all accredited through this one company?
Probably
Or
not.
different?
There may be different ones.
May I clarify something? So
Please,
Evans ED was the company that did it in 2019, and they also did Garfield High School and all the other schools. they went out of business and Cognia is taking over that company right now. And so OSPI has told us because, they are delayed in sending us the list of student schools that are accredited due to the location. A lot of people are on vacation right now. So it's been delayed, and we are giving them more time to send us those information and we will forward to you.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess just the point, we do have an external performance auditing policy, which basically says, you know, any audits, reports that are done on the district should be delivered to the board of directors upon completion. So it bothered me that this was done in 2019 and the board never saw it. So I guess that's the other point I wanted to make is, you know, whenever these audits or whatever are done, we should be getting a copy of them. So, and we do have a policy.
I really want to have a discussion on this about how this affects the student at the center. I mean, if our work centers around the student, this is really making a difference.
That's my question on the regulation.
So I guess to clarify, is that a discussion that we can have now, or is that something that we need to put as a board discussion on a future agenda? Okay, I'm seeing if it's
Yeah,
for, that's.
That was just one.
Okay. I mean, I think it sounds like there's some information, you know, some interesting things that you want to hear as well, but regardless of whether we walk away today thinking that this is, you know, something we want to do or not, I think it still would be great to have that conversation and get some of those worries. I'm curious about the ongoing, not maintenance is the wrong word, but the ongoing accreditation. Do you have to re-go through the process every 2 years? What is that? Every 6?
And then
Okay.
you get some interim within 3 years. or
Okay.
something. And it is, you know, when you read the
Oh,
requirements.
thanks. It's right there.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I do read things, I promise. That's one little sentence.
And it's not different. The other thing, this organization that runs this, I mean, you need to pay them the dues every year. Just like that. And so it's, you know, and we need to make sure that we have a budget, assuming we think it's worth doing.
Which would kind of be my next question, like knowing that this might be somewhere that we go, have we built that in or thought about that in reference to the next year, the budget? that we're
Yeah, I
drafting
think,
now?
again, I think those are things that we certainly update.
It's not a huge amount of money.
Right.
But it's.
Okay, so we'll add it to future agenda for some more discussion. Yeah. Cool. Anything else on the vision?
No.
Edna, did you have any questions on accreditation?
No, I'm looking forward to further discussion, though.
Right, so any of these other items, other questions came up?
The other question with the Orlando's credit and state law literacy, this is an area that's near and dear to my heart since I was the policy a number of years ago to get this going. And this is the kind of the 10th year anniversary of this program, which our students have embraced with great vigor. And it's the track back to the last 2 years. There was a lull in terms of number of students and the number of credits. Scott, last year they got 130 students to 392 credits into this program, which was the highest since pre-COVID. 18-19 had 135 students and 412 credits, so a little bit more, and it went down during COVID time, but now great news is coming back up. And this is also an indication that I think we're getting more immigrants coming. I mean, we went through that period where the Trump administration shut it off, and now we're starting to pick back up. So we're seeing that in these tests and the number of credits that students are gaining. It's always interesting to me also to look at just like the top 10 languages that students are getting these in, and of course Spanish is #1. And this year, yeah, also exceeded, this year there were 62 students, got 188 credits in Spanish, which is the record for past. So it tells me that there's a lot of students coming up from, Central America, and that's, no surprise, but we're getting there, and it's great that they're staying in touch with their heritage language. Number 2 is Vietnamese, number 3 is Somali, number 4 is Dari, which is one of the 2 main languages in Afghanistan. And then Swahili, Tagalog, which is a Philippine language, Tigrinya, which is, I always get a geography lesson there. It's a language we speak in Eritrea, so that's West Africa or East Africa. And then Samoan, Arabic, and French. So, the other really interesting, benefit of this program, I mean, I've always been a big fan of it for a couple of reasons. One is, immigrant students come in and they have a very challenging world to get into, and this allows them to kind of build up their self-esteem by getting credits. The system recognizing credits for language, this asset-based approach to things, which is great. It also, a lot of our families have multi-generational in them, and the grandparents, if they're coming over, they're probably not going to learn much English because it's hard to meet that age. But if the younger generation is staying in touch with their, and they're motivated to stay in touch with their heritage languages, then they're going to be able to communicate with their grandparents and maintain the heritage. And I know a lot of our students want to have expressed over the years, want to be able to at some point go back to their country of origin and help out. And so, all this stuff is really good. So I just love to see it when students take advantage of this, and we just keep getting more and more every year. So great job to the staff and the students for being successful in getting all these credits. And all the, plus we had whatever 26 by the yeah. So it wasn't a question, it was just.
Yeah, just some things.
Just some celebration, I think.
Yeah, I know. I was definitely really just excited to see on the chart on page 6, just the consistent growth. I mean, like you said, there, from 2018, 2021, there's kind of about the same numbers as far as like languages offered. But we moved to 123 languages this year, which I think is just really phenomenal. It's very, very, very cool. So. Okay. 2 other reports there. Any other follow-up questions on these other 2 items?
The only other one, I was curious, the last one, the farming assessment data, RA and MI. And so the question is, why can we not, in the interest of trying to reduce the amount of time we spend with students take, standardized tests, why can we not use iReady to serve the purpose of the RI and MI, which are another, I mean, they're another standardized test that do similar things. So, and so the answer is part of the municipal intervention system. Is there really no way we can, get the same information from? And I guess at the next meeting we'll see, because I know sometimes we'll see the correlation between MI and RI are just, assessments of reading and math, and which iReady does as well. So, why can't we, use that? So I guess maybe we'll get some insight into that next time, because I think when you look at it, there'll probably be a high level of overlap between the 2. It's the same thing. So why in the world? Anyway, that's still an open question. I guess we'll maybe hear that next time.
Yeah, Zara, is that that's on the agenda for our next meeting, I assume, or?
Well, I asked the question of how do we look at RA and MI compared to already a right person at the upcoming already report.
Okay.
Is it just a different time of year when they want this assessment material?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll make sure we address that during that.
Yeah, I'm just generally interested in, things that we have control over. I mean, we don't necessarily control the state test, but when we have control over things, can we do things that reduce the amount of testing time, so we have more instructional time?
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Baker is there. I just didn't know if he wanted the opportunity to say anything regarding this or not. I mean, you already answered the question, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the RI and MI for Showalter Middle School places students on the continuum for the Read 180 and Math 180 intervention system. So those two things are linked together. It's like a product. And iReady is a whole separate thing. And the only students that take the MI and RI are the students who receive that intervention class at Showalter Middle School. Everyone receives the iReady assessment to gauge their progress on reading and in math. So it's really a kind of a product-based assessment that places students on the continuum so that when they go into the classroom, the programs know where to start them at the appropriate level.
And the iReady wouldn't do that.
The iReady does have an intervention system, yes. That's also attached to the diagnostic assessments that the students take, which all students have access to. So the students that are in Read 180 and Math 180 are actually getting double dipped with Read 180 and Math 180 during the day. And then they can also do the iReady interventions at a different time.
So this is more of a problematic thing. In that we're using a curriculum out of the RI and MI. It's
Correct,
different. Okay,
correct.
that makes sense to me.
It's an intervention system. Yes.
But I think to your point, Director Larson, just taking a look at the time impact of those pieces and what that looks like for other instructors.
But I guess, I don't know if we've had the recent value, Read 180 and Math 180 have been going for a number of years, and question is, when I'm looking at the show the scores, I gotta ask the question, are they working?
Yes. Right.
So that's probably a question for the
Yeah.
PCA.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, getting to those interventions that are being the most effective.
Yeah, right. Yep.
and then I think I just wanted to highlight on the senior report, this was before, but just how incredible it was. I think it got highlighted before the Academy Senior Awards night, but 99 of our students received College Bound scholarships, which I think is just really incredible, totaling $5.54 million. Like, that's just fantastic. And I just to say that out loud. So congratulations to all of you students for working so hard on that, and the teachers and everyone for supporting them. Just really, really incredible. So. Okay. Last chance. Any questions on any of these other things? Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Baker, for jumping on. Okay.
You're very much welcome.
All right, so brings us down now to our action items. And just as a reminder, we did amend the agenda. So we just have one action item, which is the approval of the human resources staffing report.
Hello.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving?
Hi.
Okay, it stands approved. So then we will move to our last opportunity for public comment. So as a reminder, you can comment virtually by typing your name in the chat, and then Ms. Kaur will give you the ability to unmute yourself and speak verbally in that way. You can also raise your hand using that function in Zoom. And if there's anyone that you find folks that would like to public comment here, that sign up sheet is now gone, but we can pull it back out very easily. Just need a little extra space, in case people can't find that hand raised thing. It's okay. All right, but seeing none, we will go ahead then and move to adjourning our meeting. So,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are officially adjourned at 7:40. I'm sorry, Edna, I did not mean to, I've done that several times today.
It's
Ugh.
okay.
My apologies. Okay, we are officially adjourned at 7:40. Thank you all so much.
You're trying to sign off.
You're right.